Thank you, Christine.
Okay, I kept seeing your mouth move. So maybe she's on the phone.
Oh, no, I forgot and I wanted to see if I could figure out how to record. So let's see how this is going to go. I want to welcome everybody here today. My name is Diana and I want to welcome you to our very first tools training. Marge and I will be partnering with these trainings once a month at different times of the day so we can reach different audiences. And today we're going to be talking about the connectedness map. So I want to encourage participation and questions and anything that will help you understand what we're doing with connectedness maps and collaborative family engagement. So as this process spreads through our program and through all of our casework that we're doing, I want to do my part, and I know Marge does too, to make you comfortable with the process and to be able to help you in any way that we can. So I'd like to start with, are there any children or families that you are working with that you have concerns about? And does anybody want to share? You're muted, Marge.
I just said all of them.
All of them.
About all of them because that's why they're here.
Absolutely.
There was one, Diana, that I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
There's one, it's one of the kids is she's already 18, and then the other child is 11. Okay. But the older one chose to stay in care and go to school. Basically, she's been asking for help to find her family, but the attorney ad litem doesn't agree with it, and neither does CPS. And so me and Marge had talked about it, and so maybe someone else has some ideas on what we can do to, I guess, help her find family, without stepping on CPS's, feet. And the attorney is Julie, so you know how that goes.
But what's the reason why the family is toxic, or?
Family is toxic. They basically the case is from like 2016, and they say the family is toxic. But this child, she just wants to find her aunts. The parents have been terminated on this case, but she's just like really set on, I want to find my family. I want to find my family. So
I had a similar case to that, with two siblings. One chose not to be with their family and the other chose to want to find their family. And we had the same feedback. No, the family's toxic. No, no, no. And the whole time the child is suffering emotionally. And it was the cause of, I believe, her failed adoptions. And so now that they've seen, the success of CFE with other cases, they were willing to, authorize us to find the family. And so, I mean, I think that we are here to advocate for the child's best interest. And if they are interested in finding their family, then we should find the family, and then we can have a meeting to assess if they're a good fit for the child, if they can move forward with communicating in the future, or if they need to pick and choose, okay, this family member is okay and this one's not, but regardless, just like the older sibling, when he went into foster care and he got a cell phone, guess what? He's communicating with his family. So regardless of what we want them to do and what we don't want them to do, they are individuals, and CPS has been training them since they've been in the care and teaching them that they have their individual rights. So why would we want to go against that? That's my argument.
Well, if you remember, Flora, when you and I talked, we talked about the fact that we certainly could assure the ad litem that we are not going to, if I remember correctly, you said these two children have suffered a lot of trauma and they're in therapy, and we can assure the ad litem that we're not just going to put them together and give them visits. That doesn't mean we can't have a family meeting and talk to them and see if they have anything constructive to offer. And if they don't, if they come to a family meeting, or if we call them and they say, I'm not coming to your meeting, blah, 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 or whatever, if they are totally uncooperative, then it can die there. But until we know that, you know, and I've also had another situation where a child, and Charlene, I think this was one of yours. We had the first phone calls or visits. You know, we talked to the therapist, the child's therapist, and said, when is this child going to be ready to see their family?
Yes.
And so I think, you know, we can assure the CPS caseworker and the ad litem that we're not talking about putting these kids with them until we know that it's okay. We're still seeking the best interest of the child.
Yeah, and it's a process. It's not going to happen overnight. And that's one thing we have to remind them of. Okay, we are a team and we're working together. So these are the steps we're going to take, you know, and then once you do that, then just take it one meeting at a time.
So you were saying, Flora, that it was the 18-year-old that was interested?
Yes, on this one, it's the 18-year-old, and I've tried a few times, but you know, Julie has shut me down, of course, and then even the CPS worker. So, but I was telling Marge, I'm going to see about maybe we could try again, and Marge is like, yeah, we need to try again. So I was just kind of seeing, you know, what else, what everybody else kind of thought, if had any other ideas. But I like what Charlene was saying, you know, she has that right to reach out to family, and it's not really up to all of us just to say no because we feel a certain way. And so I think that's really, I like what Charlene said, and, you know.
Yeah, and she is an adult now too. So with or without your help or guidance, she's going to be reaching out to people that may or may not be good for her. So wouldn't it be better if she was reaching out through her team, through you and the ad litem and CPS, before she
Definitely
got on her own and without that support?
I think,
and maybe something that we have to say, look, we can do this as a team and protect her, or she's going to do it on her own. And when she does it on her own, she's not going to feel comfortable coming to us when she gets hurt.
you also, collaborative family engagement just means engaging people in her life, not necessarily, you're not considering them, not necessary for placement. It's just someone that they can contact and have, you know, communication with that's positive and encouraging, but not necessarily that's where they're going to be placed or anything like that.
Right. So Flora, did you get some good, helpful ideas?
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you everybody for all your input. That's what makes these sessions so valuable, is learning from each other. So, so I know over the time that you guys have been volunteers and been talking and working with your supervisors, you've talked about many different tools and things that you could use to help find family. And then, so we're going to go over today how to make a connectedness map. Now, this one, I'm going to show a short video to give you some ideas how it would be done if you were doing it in a face-to-face visit. But for many of us, we're not doing face-to-face visits right now. So Marge is going to help us with some ideas on how to use this connectedness map, either just by phone or some way to have that conversation to get this information from the parties that we're working with. So if you have a little patience, I will get that video going. And
in this video, you will learn how to create a mobility map. We will use the early life of Louis Armstrong as an example. Louis Armstrong was born August 1st.
Boy, did I pick the wrong one.
In this video, we will explain how to make a connectedness map.
There we go.
We will make one with Lady Mary from Downton Abbey. If we would interview Lady Mary about her support network, we would first ask her to put her child in the middle of the paper and circle her child's name. Then we ask her, when George has a birthday, who would you think would attend because they love him? Ask her to put their names on the paper around George and draw lines from George to these names. She likely says, I love him. Encourage her to put her name on the paper with a line to George. She would tell you that her family loves George, specifically Robert Crowley, his grandfather, Cora Crowley, his grandmother, Henry Talbot, his stepfather, Edith Pelham, his aunt, Tom Branson, his uncle, Sibby Branson, his cousin, Marigold, his other cousin. If you then ask her if there is anyone in George's father's family who loves George, she would say, Isabel Gray, the mother of George's father. If you would ask her if there is anyone outside of the family who loves George, she would say, Mr. Carson, who has been like a father to me. Anna Bates, who dresses me and who is a good friend. Thomas Barrow, the under-butler. He often plays horse with George. If you ask Lady Mary about school or daycare, she would say that George has a nanny who he is attached to. After you have added anybody Mary can think of, ask Lady Mary who she would invite if we ever organize a family meeting. Let her add a star to these people. She tells you that she doesn't want Edith there because she feels that Edith would just feel too superior. The cousins are children themselves, and all the others are not family members and have nothing to say about her. Once the parents have told you who they would like to attend the family meeting, ask them if they would be okay for CASA or CPS to invite these family members. You can explain to the parents that it is much more likely that family members will attend the family meeting if they are officially invited by someone from CASA or CPS. You may want to ask the parents for these people's contact information. When you organize a family meeting, you might only want to invite the family members who the parents gave a star. If the case becomes a PMC case, you can revisit this connectedness map and invite people to the family meeting to whom the parents did not give a star. Strive to get as many of these people back in the child's life as soon as possible. We hope you have enjoyed watching this video. We wish you all the best in learning more about the children and families you work with. Keep looking on how to reconnect the children with their relatives and other emotional supports. Don't forget that parents need support as well. Feel free to subscribe to my channel and watch other videos that might be useful for you or your work. Thank you for all you do.
Okay. Stop sharing. So for our first tool, I think that one is
In this video,
Whoa.
you will learn how to create a mobility map.
You know what? We might have to do that mobility map next month because it's really wanting to play. So I think with this short video and this tool right here is a really quick and easy way to find out about family. Marge, if you were using this with different age groups, can you give us some ideas how we could implement this without being face-to-face?
Well, that was done with a parent. And I think that it could be done just as it was described. And of course, you as the CASA would be drawing the picture and the parent would not be seeing it unless you are really skilled at getting an easel up and doing it this way on a Zoom. It just depends on how well you're doing with video conferences and stuff. But if you were just on the phone, you could still do it and then reflect back to them what you're writing down. Now, if you were doing it with a child, you would be approaching it much differently than what they were saying. You know, you'd be asking the child, who's important to you, who in your family or who in your school, and that kind of thing. And you could still do the same thing with putting the child in the middle and putting the ones around. And then you might have to ask, who would you like to come to visit you, or something like that, you know, because you wouldn't be saying, we're going to have a meeting to talk about how to help you. But you could say, who would you like to have come visit you? And then you could mark the ones. Now, the one thing that I think the statement made that if you say to them that people are more likely to come if they get an official invitation, I think that's probably pretty important, but I think we've done all the invitations. I don't think we've relied on the parents to invite people to these meetings. Or if we have, I don't think they've always come. You know, I think they've said, oh, well, they couldn't get here or something like that. So I think that's pretty important that we make it an official kind of thing. The other comment that was made was about only inviting the people that the parents gave a star to. And I know we've discussed this a whole lot. You know, we've had parents say, well, I don't want that one involved or whatever. And usually then they won't give us contact information. So I don't know exactly how to deal with that. I think we need to be able to say to them, we won't be discussing the problems in the family. Well, that's not exactly true. We won't be discussing what you did wrong. So if you're saying that to a parent, we'll be talking about what we can do for this child. So that's the way the information will be. That's the tone of the meeting. You know, who can do something for your child or for you. So does anybody have questions or something on that? That doesn't sound right? That we would have to figure out another way to do something?
I think that sounds good. I mean, we can do that by phone and you know, communicate that way. If we don't have the technical, you know, skills to do the Zoom or something like that, it can be done by phone. And then, you know, so.
So if you were doing this with a child, would you be discussing it with their placement first to let them know that you're going to be asking these types of questions? Or is this just in your conversation? I'm just curious.
I would just do it as conversation. I mean, it's not anything formal, because, well, depending, I guess, also on the age of the child, because, you know, when you're teenagers or something, they kind of shut down if they know that you're kind of interrogating them for a specific reason.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be just more kind of casual talk, and, you know, depending, I guess, each individual kid would be, it'd be based on that. Because some little kids, they'll just talk and talk and talk and give you all the information without even asking much, you know. And others, you know, especially I find with teens, they're a little bit more closed off. If they think that you have some kind of an agenda or something, or they're, you know, whatever, for whatever their fears are, you know.
Okay.
Well, and I think in some situations, or maybe in all of them, you might want to include the placement somewhat and ask them, well, who do they talk about? Do they ever tell you about their next door neighbor, or do they tell you about somebody they wish they could see? Because when you're talking to them, the child may not think of all those, but I think the placement could be helpful. And I don't know that, again, I don't see this as being an issue that would cause a problem to the placement if the placement didn't know you were doing it. So it's not a confidentiality kind of thing. So I don't know that you would have to tell the placement, but I do think the placement might have information that would be helpful.
Right.
I think in certain situations, we do need to talk to the placement, because when you're asking them these questions, remember, these kids have been traumatized. They miss their family. You're starting to talk about family. You're rehashing old events, old things that they've been crying about for who knows how long. And we just need to make them aware that we're going to be asking these questions if they're a certain age. Like Christine said, the older kids, you know, even ones as small as 5, 6, and 7, they're capable to understand that. You know, hey, they're asking me questions about my family. Well, why aren't they visiting me? Well, where are they? How come they haven't called me? And so then, you know, you might get them acting out. So they would need to look out for that at the placement, so they can know why the child is acting this way. That gives a lot of feedback for us, you know, like those are triggers for the child. But that's one reason I would talk to the placement.
Mm-hmm. So once we get all these names of people, then what would be our next step?
Well, you know, this is something I've talked with some of the supervisors about. I think the reason we have a team meeting is less to hash out this one's bad, that one's bad, something else, you know, but to plan the family meeting. If the team meeting is just going to talk about placement and the way the case is going and that kind of thing, that happens in a lot of other places. But the team meeting really is, at least in part, to plan the family meeting. So when you get that information, then you go to a team meeting and you say, okay, Mom told me Uncle Joe and Grandpa this and whoever else, you know, are all ones that she thinks would come to a family meeting. She would like to see at a family meeting to help. And then the team, you know, there again, we may have an ad litem who says, man, I wouldn't let Uncle Joe come, you know. But as a team, we need to determine who we're going to bring to the family meeting. And then once that's determined, then the invitation goes out and the family meeting gets scheduled, I think.
Okay.
And Marge, you've said before that it's up for the team to decide if we go forward with who and everything else, correct? The team being the CPS ad litem. and I'm not, and of course CASA, right?
Mhm. I have said that, but I'm kind of backing away from it a little bit from the standpoint, I mean, it has to be, because you can't do it without the team being, working
Right.
with it. But I think that we, as CASA, need to push family meetings more than we have done in the past, because CPS and ad litems, we've got some ad litems who really are not into it. And, and sometimes CPS is not. And if they have good reason, then we have to consider that, certainly. But I think we really need to push for family meetings, because that's all that CFE is. CFE is family engagement. If we don't get them into a meeting, we don't have them engaged in a formal way. You're talking to them, the caseworker's talking to them, the ad litem's talking to them. So different ones are talking to them, but they're not engaged in a real cohesive kind of approach to how we're going to help these children. So I really, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I have several cases that are really old, and two things happened this morning. One family member out of the blue, actually it sounds familiar for both cases. CPS had called or sent a text that said, hey, this person now wants to get involved in this boy's life via support system. And I asked, and I have been asking for the name and the information to be shared, so all of us can partake in that conversation with this uncle, not just CPS. And I just said again, I think that we need to have a team meeting for all of us to have a conversation with this person to vet them out. I mean, are they here just to find out what's been going on, or are they really truly going to stay? And these are the cases that I've had with Roxy, a couple of them where, it might take 5 months before them really having contact with the child, because they have been away from that child for, I don't know, 5 years, 6 years, just to make sure that they're really committed to being part of their life, not just because they're curious right now. So I don't know, that's kind of a ramble I have. I mean, because those are some of the cases that have been, the parents are terminated, nobody's good anymore, but people do change. Things in their life at that time may not have been right, but family members do change over time, and they all might be worth looking at.
I agree, and I think we do need to protect the children by doing the steps we need to take before we get them involved, but particularly if it has been a long time, or that they have been considered, we keep using the word toxic, but they've been considered inappropriate contacts, influences for the children. So I think we can't rush it, but we do have to keep moving forward, with that as the goal, if it's going to work out.
So in your casework, can you think of one case that you might think of right now that you say, hey, I'm comfortable having this conversation with my child or with my families that I'm working with, and see where this leads me? Or do you have anybody in mind, or can you think of anything like that that might be helpful?
Well, I have a question. I've got one of my children that we're going on 5 years. This child has constantly talked about this family member, but CPS has never allowed any conversation. The family member has reached out and has been reaching out to CPS from day one, which I've never been informed of, and we're going on 5 years. And I'm just now finding out today that this person has been calling and calling and calling, but CPS won't talk to him. CPS tells him, well, I'll have to check, but I'll get back with you. Nothing's ever happened. Mm-hmm. This is the same family member that this child has been wanting to speak to and talk to and see and visit with for 5 years.
Wow.
Okay, I've talked to Sandy about it because this just happened this morning. It was like, boom, everything happens for a reason. And she's like, I don't know how they found out that I was the one on the case, but I guess because there's a whole lot of cases with this family, and so they could have seen me in court and or whatever. I don't have a problem with this family member. There was issues back at the beginning, and I understand why they were never contacted, but I was not aware that she has been reaching out to CPS for 5 years.
Wow.
All she's asking is maybe to do FaceTime with the child or children. She doesn't know the other ones have already been adopted. This is the only one that's not. But, you know, just to have contact with her.
Right.
Sandy has suggested, wherever she went, that maybe we meet with this person, this aunt, just the three of us, and talk and discuss to figure out what her goals are, what her short-term, long-term, you know, whatever. And I think it's worth a try. I think it's worth a shot. I can guarantee you CPS isn't going to go for it. The ad litem will. I don't think she'll have a problem with it at all, but CPS is not. They're going to fight me tooth and nail. So can we proceed without CPS at first?
I would definitely, just me personally, because I have to work with this team of members, I would definitely want to start with a team meeting first between all the 5 of you, so that you could give CPS an opportunity to explain why they have never acted on that before, and go there, because that way you are respecting their opinion, and then take that next step. But I would definitely want everybody at the table to see what their concerns are.
And I don't think, if I remember correctly, Susan, we don't know who they contacted. You may now know that you're back home, but we didn't have the name of who they contacted at CPS, only that they contacted them.
Right.
So
There were multiple caseworkers on that case, so depending on which time she called, which caseworker it was, but she had, the latest contact has been within the last year,
Okay.
which is since she's been in adoption status.
Okay.
But like I said, even all the other contacts, no one has ever, you know, it was a shock to me that, you know, she'd been trying to reach out, and it, you know, this child from day one has wanted to talk something. So 5 years later, that's the only family member that she's talked about.
Yeah.
Has there ever been a CFE team meeting
No,
for this
ma'am.
case at all?
No, ma'am.
Okay, then that would be the first step, to call a team meeting and to say, we have, you know, this person has reached out. We just want to talk and see whether we think there's any future in trying to get this family member involved, and you know, tell them that's what you're coming for, and then present what you have as to the fact that the child keeps talking to you about her, that she has said she's interested, and then ask what the other, you know, see what CPS's objection is and see if it's valid or not. You know, I know you say they're going to fight you.
Oh yeah. Well, you know, you were talking toxic, you were talking, you know, violent. That home where these children were, or this child now, was very, I mean, it's probably the worst I've ever seen. But this particular relative was not involved with that.
Right.
According to, you know, like she said, she's right now, it's been 5 years, and this child has been on her mind. She's tried to make contact. CPS doesn't get back with her, doesn't tell her anything. They'll say, well, we'll check into it and we'll get back with you. They didn't. So she's just about given up.
Yeah.
And
well, thank
she's
goodness
not talking like, I want her, I don't want to, you know, right now I would be happy with just a phone call, you know, just to be able to hear her voice. Maybe FaceTime, since we're with she's not wanting anything right now, you know, to be permanent. You know, she knows that there's steps that she needs to take, and she was trying to take them and got no cooperation.
Mhm.
Right. Well, in the team meeting, you would want to not say that she told you she's reached out and you never got
Right.
back to her,
Yeah.
because that
Right.
would just make them more negative towards her.
Yeah.
But you also could say, you know, how can we check this person out and see if they will be a good influence for the child?
Mhm.
Let them come in on how, you know, that you're not just saying, let's do this. Let's see
Right.
what we need to check them out.
Right.
Right. Because I mean, the child herself, you know, has made several statements and has told, I know, the multiple caseworkers, the CPS worker, you know, this aunt was, along with the grandmother at the time before she passed, they were their savior, basically. You know, they snuck them, these two people were the ones that snuck them food through their bedroom windows. This was the one that, you know, gave them cell phones to hide so they could make contact with the outside family. And it's, you know, she's there. I mean, so yeah, if she's wanting to reach out, I think it's something that we definitely need to look into. You know, I'm not saying that it could be a permanent placement for this child. I'm just saying it needs to start slow. But, you know, I think she deserves it, since she's been asking for this person for 5 years.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a long time
A
for a child
child,
to
I
pick
mean,
up.
Yeah.
you know, I think it's worth it. I mean, the child deserves that, and I think we need to work on something to get it done.
Yes. So, well, I'm sure Miss Sandy can help you get on that list to get that team call scheduled. And Marge, of course, is here to assist you as well. And we'll see, maybe in the next month or so, when we all come back together, you'll have some updates for us.
Well, I'd like to be able to, Sandy, we have a special hearing set for March the 26th with the judge. Hopefully we can get something done before that, so I can actually bring this to the judge, because that's always been one of his questions. There's no family that's out there. There's no, well, 99% of them are not, there's no way that you can, I mean, they are not proper. They're not appropriate at all.
Right.
But this one, I think it's worth a shot. So I'd like to be able to report that to the judge when we go on the 26th. And then CPS, if they've got questions, they can bring them before the judge at that time.
So I like that you're cautious, and I know all of you are. Whenever people say, oh, the family is not appropriate, or the family is all toxic, or it's all bad, or whatever, I do like the way that you take each individual family member into consideration and not lump them all together as being bad.
Because as like someone said, you know, people do change.
Yes.
You know, it's been 5 years. So if there was an issue, say with this particular aunt 5 years ago, and it was just then, and everything's been clean from then, and there's been no issue. Yeah, I think they all deserve that chance. Now the rest of the family, I can downright say no. When they, excuse me, there's an ambulance going by. But I mean, I think Joy knows who we're talking about. I mean, the whole
I was
family.
just gonna say, is this the family we have in common?
Yes,
Common?
yes.
Oh, God.
They are
Yeah, I
very
understand.
toxic. I mean, and this particular aunt was not raised with that family. She chose at a very young age to go live with friends because of the alcoholism, the drug addiction, the men in and out of the home. You know, she's the good one out of the bunch. And through some of our cases, you've got that one.
Yes.
Okay, the mother, the grandmother, the aunts, the other aunts and uncles, they've never reached out. They've never tried. But this one has been trying. And I think that they've been judged.
Sandy had a very good suggestion the other day when I was talking with her, that when we have these team meetings, the team calls, particularly the first one, which wouldn't help a case that's 5 years old now, but particularly on the first one, you know, by law, CPS is required to contact the relatives to the third degree. And I'm not exactly sure what third degree is, you know, but I'm sure it includes grandparents and aunts and uncles. And so Sandy had said, you know, could we, when we have that first team call, could we say, okay, who are all the relatives that CPS has contacted and what are their contact, you know, what's their contact information? You know, can we just know who the family is rather than just saying, oh, all the family's no good or whatever they is sometimes said. If we start with that list of all these people, whether they have, you know, one of the things that the reporting Diana has to do says how many contacts were there at the beginning of the case. And then of course they want to know at the end of the case, and hopefully there are going to be more contacts, but we don't always know who the contacts are, and we don't want to just have every list of every relative on there. Sometimes I go through the affidavits and I go, oh, well, there was this one, this one, this one. But then if they're not really connected to the children, that I don't think should be a connection. But at least if we know who they are, we can know where to start trying to contact.
Well, I think after 5 years and I believed her, and you know, when she said that she's been reaching out and trying, I do believe her. She was very emotional. She thought she had lost them forever, you know, and so I do believe that we do need to meet on this, and it needs to be quickly, and we need to see and answer CPS's questions or let them do background check, whatever they need to do. But I think that it would be a good idea, and Sandy and I discussed that Sandy and I maybe meet with her and her significant other or whatever, and sit down and try to figure out what they would want. You know, how, if this was to happen, what'd you call it, your short-term and your long-term goals, you know, what is it that you want, that you expect out of this if it happens? Because there's no guarantee, you know.
Diana, a while ago you said something about getting with the team first, but do you not think, do you think that Susan and Sandy could meet with this person just to get a little information that then to present to the team and say, well, this is what she said to me. She said this is what she's interested in. Or do you think it should go to the team even before you do much more contact with the...
And Diana, I wanted to handle it a little bit like we did with the case with LaShondria, to see how it, because it has been for so long, and kind of work our way there. I do know that Roxy is not proposing all contacts for every case, because her and Julie Hale, believe it or not, have had cases where it took them 5 months to meet with this family members before they meet with the child. So, I mean, I would like to have a conversation with Susan and this family member, just to say, what is it that you, kind of like that parent, you know, that says, hey, what are your intentions?
Yeah.
If it's a flyby, if it's just a flyby, let's not even talk about it anymore. But if it's a true, genuine, I want to have, you know, further contact with them, then I think that would be better supported us in our case. So that's why I said just her and I at first.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking, you know, if I'd like to fill out the situation in a, you know, a little different, just to see where she's headed, where her head is. I mean, if she's been looking and trying to make contact for 5 years to no avail, she's wondering, you know, what, you know, never see him again.
Right.
But she would be that another constant if that's the case. But if they're just looking to say, oh, we just want to see her, say hi, you know, or get a picture of her, no, then that's not going to go anywhere. And there's no sense in getting the child, you know, thinking about it. So yeah, that's why, you know, hopefully, you know, before we get everybody involved, including CPS, let's feel it out and see if we honestly think this person is sincere and really wants to follow through and have eventually, hopefully, a relationship with this child. But if it's like you said, if it's just a flyby, then no, it's not going to be worth it.
No, it would hurt this girl more than it would help.
My only comment about that is, how many times has one member of the team ruled out something without your opinion or your input.
Oh, I already sent the email, so we will have a meeting on it.
That's all I'm asking is for you to be as respectful to your team members as you want them to be with you.
Absolutely.
So that's the only reason why I suggest that team meeting first. Just that quick phone call. It's not going to take long, and see where everybody stands in and stuff like that. That's why I'm there. But I don't work with these ladies on a day-to-day basis like y'all do. You're out there face to face with them all the time, and you have a different kind of relationship than I would have. So.
Well, the meeting has already been sent out for a quick meeting.
Okay.
And so it's already, that part is already done.
Okay.
That one back yet. So we have to talk about it.
So that's just kind of where I'm at when it comes to this, because so many people have different opinions about this approach and about contacting family members and things like that. We want to be successful as possible. So we want to be as respectful as possible to everybody on the team. But we do want to be respectfully aggressive when it comes to engaging these families, because I think I've heard from Judge Marr a couple of different times this week talking about how parents have a right to raise their children, and the importance of exercising every option to get those for reunification to occur when it's safe and appropriate. So they are really support, and that's the way the Texas Family Code is written, is very pro-parent. So we want to make sure that we have done everything that we can. So,
Diana,
yes.
is your respectfully aggressive similar to my politely aggressive?
Absolutely. So we just want to make sure that these kids have every benefit possible to know who their family members are. And because when we're thinking about connections, let's face it, for the long term, 10 years down the road, this case is still going on, this child ages out, are they coming to your house for summer break, Christmas holidays? Are you the person, or is CPS the person that they're going to call? No, we want them to have people in their lives that are safe and appropriate that they can reach out to.
And I want to add, Diana, personality of family.
Mm-hmm.
It's not up to us to decide. I mean, because there's families that are loud, there's families that are quiet. They may not be our families, but they are the children's families. And as long as they're good to the children and will take care of them, they can be as loud or disorganized. I don't care, because it's the children that matter in this.
Yes. So.
And that's why I'm saying the child has really been struggling here the last 6 months or so, really struggling. And that's why we have a special hearing set for the 26th, I believe. And I just like to be able to at least say something positive to Judge Marr about, there may be, we're looking into it. We're trying to see, and see, be able to tell them, what this relative expects, and right now it's just to be able to say, hello, how are you? Right. But I know CPS needs to do their thing as far as, background checks, but a phone call or a FaceTime, I don't see what the problem is with that. So, but I'd like to be able to report to Judge Marr that, okay, we got a little bit of a break. We don't know how far it's going to go or how long it will go on, but I at least would like to see this through and see. If it's not positive for the child, if the child reacts differently, then no, okay, we don't have to follow through with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think she deserves this after this many years, and this being the one family member that she only talks about. I think it's worth it. And
well, March 11th, we will know for sure. Huh? That's the date, March 11th.
Oh, good.
Dang, that long?
Not far away.
Now that's including where you included Cynthia and Roxy, or what? Okay. So we don't do anything, we don't try to get any other information or anything and before then? From the,
Well,
from
I
this,
don't know how
from
much,
this
I don't know how much Diane and Marge have to go in this session. So let's talk offline, Susan, and we'll get more specific, okay?
Okay, well, I'm just trying to figure out if we can move forward with trying to get more information from this relative, or if we have to wait until we get CPS's permission.
Diana, I would like to have a meeting with this aunt and then have a meeting with the CPS and tell them what we uncovered and then kind of go from there. And I will include Marge in that meeting as well. We will be very
With the
respectful
aunt
to
or with
everyone.
the CPS? When you
I'm
say,
sorry?
when you say have a meeting with CPS, you're talking about the team call?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions or comments or anything like that? Any other concerns about engaging the families? Or anything at all that we could help you with today?
No, the only thing I could add is don't use COVID as an excuse to judge Mar.
Isn't that the truth?
He's right, though. People are going out to eat. People are shopping. People are doing this. So, you know, when he said, well, it's not an excuse anymore. And that's some of the excuses that CPS does use right now with these family visits.
Right.
And I think that's totally wrong. The parents, if they are entitled to visitation, they need to have them. You know, just because you don't want them in the office, but it's not appropriate to be outdoors either because of weather, don't cancel the visit. Your office is open, they need to be there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, don't use COVID as an excuse anymore.
No. So if we don't have anything else, we're going to be meeting again in March. We're going to take up another tool and have an opportunity just to talk about anything that's on your mind. And after we introduce
March
that, when? Ma'am?
March when?
Let me get my calendar.
You have it scheduled already or no?
Is this going to be in addition to the
It's on the
First Community
15th.
Luncheon training?
It's going to be on March the 24th.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it's a different one. And I believe we're going to be talking about the My Three Houses activity.
Okay.
And how we can use that.
Okay.
So, all right.
I appreciate it.
Thank you all so much. Thank you for your participation, and hope we see you soon.
Thank you.